What's up, guys? This is BladeSharkX NTG. Welcome to our first video. So today we're going to be doing a bit of a deck tech for an EDH deck. This is my commander, Quan. I call it the Quan clan. Creatures you control have horsemanship. This means that they're pretty much unblockable. So it's pretty unfair to sit there and be like, hey, by the way, no, you can't do that today. So anyway, this is a creature-based deck for blue. It's not something you see all too often. So here we go. So Quan, as you know, is the commander. For creatures control have horsemanship. So let's go. Other than the creatures, I do have some combo pieces, which is why I laid them out. A lot of them revolve around this guy, and if you don't know this guy, you've been living in a box. So this guy is Deadeye Navigator, has Soul Bond. Anytime it or a creature that does not have Soul Bond enters the battlefield, you can Soul Bond it to him and they gain the effect down below. So pay 1 in a blue and flicker or exile this creature and return it to the battlefield under your control. Here's some of the combo pieces. Mole Drifter allows you to draw 2 cards. Laboratory Maniac basically lets you win the game if you have a library with no cards in it. Of course, we got Peregrine Drake, which is the budget version of Palinchron, which lets you untap up to 5 lands when he ATBs. And then you've got Duplicate Imprint. When Duplicate enters the battlefield, you may exile a non-token creature. So essentially, that's a combo piece because I can bounce it several times and exile all the creatures on the battlefield. This one is also a budget combo piece. Kind of opposite of what Duplicate does, but this one's a tribute. So if somebody says they don't want a huge thing on the battlefield or a 4/4 flyer, essentially we can take control of target creature on the battlefield. So if your opponent decides, hey, I don't want to pay the tribute, okay, I'm going to take this, or I'm going to take that. Now, obviously, a creature deck like this, and it being blue, we got to have control pieces. So here's some control pieces here. And we'll get over to these. Okay, so we'll start with some enchantments. Now we have Monastery Siege, which has a dragon's effect. Spells your opponent casts to target you or a permanent you control costs 2 more to cast to kind of protect all of your creatures. And then we have Deafening Pulse. Makes all those 1/1 tokens a little bit less annoying. And Customs Depot. Whenever I play a creature spell, I may pay 1. If I do, draw a card, then discard a card from your hand. So it helps with a little bit of draw power if you got things that you really can't use, so you just want to get rid of. Dissipation Field. Whenever a permanent deals damage to you, return it to its owner's hand. So that permanent could be a planeswalker, it could be artifact, enchantment, creature, just about anything except for instants and sorceries. So essentially it keeps the board a little bit clean and causes people to really think about what they do or don't want to do to you. Of course, we've got the old school propaganda. So each turn, each creature cannot attack you unless its controller pays an additional 2 for that creature. On decks that make big plays like 10 mana creatures, if they want to attack you with that creature that turn, if it has haste, they really can't. So it kind of saves you a turn to think about what you're going to do. Rapid Hybridization. It's an old school card from Gate Crash. Destroy target creature and it can't be regenerated. So that gets rid of a lot of pesky black and green creatures. The only difference is they get a creature in return. A 3/3 green frog lizard creature. Capsize. So everybody likes bouncing permanents to target player's hand, right? And it even has a buyback cost. What a buyback cost is essentially a cost you gotta pay to return the spell to your hand after you play it. So, combo piece with the Peregrine Drake here. So you have infinite mana, Capsize, buyback, capsize, buyback, capsize, buyback. Okay, discard this at the end of your turn. So, of course, you got a counters. Dissolve, counter target spell, scry 1, rewind, counter target spell, on tap up to 4 lands. Arcane Denial, counter target spell. That spell is cast from me. Draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next upkeep. And I draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. So it's both a help and a hurt at the same time, but we do get to draw a card, which potentially leads us into things like Aetherize, another card from Gate Crash. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. So if somebody wants to swing the board, you just go, no guy. There you go. Mind Static. This one's a 4-cost mana leak. So it's essentially 2 mana leaks on 1 card. Heavily essential when playing EDH as a counterspell, because then it says, okay, you can still play this card if you want to, but you're going to have to pay a whole bunch of mana to play it. So good for countering commanders because it adds to the commander timer. Or it says waste all your mana so you can't do anything with that commander. Counterspell, that's a classic one. I don't remember what set this is from. I'm guessing a dual deck. Probably Jace versus Faraska. So counterspell. Obviously counter target spell. Dissipation. Dissipation's a rude one because it's kind of counters a lot of the graveyard effect decks. In that it exiles. Oop, we got late. Come on, focus. There we go. It counters a spell and it puts it in exile instead of putting it in a graveyard. So that's kind of one of the many fun things that this deck can do. Put a couple pieces out here, over here, somewhere, I don't know, put them over here. Okay, so combo pieces, control, combo pieces, yes. Next we'll go over some artifacts before we get to the creature base. Some of our mana fixing. Commandosphere. So Commandosphere taps for any color mana in your commander's color identity, and I can sacrifice it to draw a card, which comes in handy sometimes because you're like, I don't have anything in my hand, I need to draw a card and take a chance. Then we got the classic Soul Ring, tap, add 2 to your mana. Some people feel like a punk when you go, okay, so I'm going to play Soul Ring and then Swiftfoot Boots. Because they know whatever's coming out after that is going to have hexproof and haste, and it's going to be all kinds of nastiness. We got the Burnished Heart. You can sack Burnished Heart for 3 and search your library for 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Kind of comes in handy when you're looking for land to play your 6-cost commander. And Cage Sun. Cage Sun comes to the battlefield. You pick a color. Creatures of that color get +1/+1, and whenever you tap a land to make that mana of the chosen color, add an additional mana to your pool, so it creates double mana. Fun things when I've got a whole bunch of big creatures and big things that do things in the deck. Go over my artifacts here. Cuitous Spike. Cuitous Spike causes enchanted creature to have death touch, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up. So it's a very nasty thing when somebody's got 2, or no, let's say 3, and that does 2 damage to them, and they're at 1. Alright, then we got the Bident of Thassa. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, I might draw a card. So I have cards in the deck like Stealer of Secrets, which, when it deals combat damage to players, draw a card. So essentially I'm getting a 2-for-1. Hit him with this, trigger this, draw 2 cards. And then I can force an opponent to attack. So I can do some pretty nasty things with some defenders. Wisp-of-Silk Cloak. So this comes in handy with cards like, and I've got to find them, just one moment. Oop, I missed an instant. Is this one it? Master's Predicaments. That guy. That guy. And these two guys. Okay. So to start off with a Sphinx Ambassador. So basically, I search the library for a card. If it's a creature card and the opponent doesn't guess it correctly, I can put it onto the battlefield under my control. So a lot of these Eldrazi decks, they got like a 1 in 4 chance if I pick an Eldrazi. Or I could do things like, I don't know, what's her name? Moldiah, Prisa Moldiah. I can sit here and be like, okay, I'm going to pick this and just wait for them to say Ulamog. And then, okay, I can play extra lands every turn now. Then we got Theta Del. She's an Island Walk Merfolk. That says whenever I deal combat damage to a player, I can search that player's library for an artifact and exile it. Then that player shuffles their library. Until end of turn, I can play that card. So, definitely something that you'd want to have, not only Island Walk, but unblockable, and have Shroud on it. Because then I could swing into somebody who, let's say, is playing an artifact deck. So I can go, okay, boom, I'm going to take your Blightsteel Colossus, or your Paradox Engine, or something of the like. And then if I do Paradox Engine and swing again next turn and put something else on the battlefield, then it just untaps all of my non-land permanents. So, a crazy card. You don't see it too often, but it is quite nice. Then we got ourselves a Steel Hellkite. If you're a fan of an artifact deck, you see this card quite often. But the handy part about that is you can look at an opponent's field, and with your commander, since I find what I did with him, oh, he's up here, I see, okay. With your commander on the field, he's automatically unblockable. So basically, it's a board wipe a turn for a specific mana cost creature. So, swing, gonna activate ability for 0, kill all the tokens. 1, kill your mana vault and other things. 2, obviously your Swiftfoot Boots, your Lightning Greaves, and those things. So this deck has a lot of control in it when I really think about it, but it is creature based, so I swing in there for 5 damage. There's nothing you can do about it. Take it to the face and enjoy. And then, by the way, you're going to lose a lot of stuff. And then we've got the Master of Predicaments. So, I essentially choose a card in my hand, and when he deals combat damage, and if a person can't guess the CMC, if it's greater than 4, then I get to play it without casting it, or without paying its mana cost. So, Master of Predicaments into Steel Hellkite, into Stormtide Leviathan, those type of cards, or Scourge of the Fleets. So, it's free cards every turn if I have big things in my hand. Colossus of Akros. So, again, things that are nice to have Whisper Silk Cloak on. Alright, let's get down to some instants and sorceries. So, Rite of Replication allows me to make copies of creatures on my battlefield, and if I pay the kicker, I could make 5 copies. Sorry, I'm going a little bit faster. We're 14 minutes in, and I don't want this to last forever. Fascination, I get to pay X, and each player draws cards, or each player mills cards. It's a fun thing to do, because sometimes you mill the combo pieces that people have been looking for. And just like, oh, Temporal Mastery. Who doesn't like extra turns? I actually got this card from a pack pull from a shop, so I decided to go ahead and keep it and put it in the deck. So it's got the miracle cost of 2, but it actually costs 7. Brainstorm, popular card. in a lot of modern decks, actually. So we draw 3 cards, put 2 from our hand on top of the library in any order. Kind of hand fixing, card fixing. Great to do. Mizium Skin. You don't see this card too often. It's a Return to Ravnica card where a target creature gets 1 to their defense and gain hexproof, and I get paid 2 to make it all of my creatures. So for the turn, it kind of makes it handy when you can say, when somebody says, okay, after you swing in, I'm going to do this. And then you're like, Mizium Skin. And they're like, nope. High Tide. This card is a wonderful card. So until the end of turn, all islands produce an additional blue when tapped for mana. So you combine this with Cage Sun and everything taps for 3 mana apiece for that turn. It's wonderful. And then of course you got the Blue Sun Zenith, which can go with the High Tide and the Laboratory Maniac if you're trying to draw out your deck. So it's pay 1 island for the additional cost, and then 3 for each additional. So that's wonderful. So I'm going to flip the camera up for just 1 second. So I'm just separating these out by my draw engines and my smack daddies. Okay, so these are all our draw engine cards, with them being, of course, unblockable. Oops, that's a little bit close. There we go, unblockable. Crackers, I just dropped it in the floor. Oh well. All of these cards, Scroll Thief, Fluxing Scholar, General, Nurok Commandos, Merfolk Spy, and who else we got here? Sphinx's Disciple, Sturmgeist, Ninja of the Deep Hours, and Arcanus, as well as our Jessian Thief. All draw cards and help me draw cards. Many of these are deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Arcanus is tap and draw 3. And of course Jessian Thief has prowess. So it's always nice to have them on the field and just be like, smack you for 1, draw a card, smack you for 1, draw a card, smack you for 1, draw a card. Then we've got our Anticipate. So look at the top 3, put 1 of them on the hand and the rest on the bottom. So it's a scry 1, but look at 3. And of course, we got things like Skittering Crustacean, another budget card. It comes in for 3, and it becomes it's a 2/3, but it becomes monstrous and gains hexproof for 7. So kind of one of those later game cards if you really want to use it. If not, I would put something more useful in here, like a Gauntlet of Power or a Sword of Feast and Famine. Just some cards that I do want to put in here that I don't have. So Scourge of the Fleets. When it enters the battlefield, return each creature your opponents control with toughness X or less to their owner's hand, where X is the number of islands that you control. So when your deck consists of a pile of islands that high, it can become a Cyclonic Rift for creatures just by dropping him on the battlefield and using that Sphinx's effect to bring him out. Really makes it look like, oh, you just play Cyclonic Rift for free. Speaker, who doesn't like this? You can combo this with the Deadeye Navigator if you want to scry until you like something you have on top. Clone. Who doesn't like Clone? Enters battlefield as a copy of any creature. So you play it, you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to make this copy of Ulamog. So it's indestructible and it does things. I put these 2 guys in the deck because Ingest. It also exiles certain things. But when he dies as a turn 1 card, I can draw a card and discard a card, which makes him a little bit more useful. The Mirror Battlesphere, if you've been living under a rock and don't know what this does, it puts 4 tokens of mirrors on the battlefield. When I attack, I can tap all 4 of those to deal 4 damage straight to the face. Frost Titan, when he enters the battlefield, tap target or attacks, tap target permanent, and it doesn't untap during the next turn. So essentially it makes it like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you're going to sit there and look pretty. But it also does a little bit of a Monastery Siege effect. So it does the same thing for himself, and it counters it unless they pay 2. So Storm Tide, Leviathan, Island Walk. All lands are islands in addition to their other types, so it automatically triggers all my Island Walk creatures. And it says creatures without flying or Island Walk cannot attack. So it basically holds people still if they don't have that. And then of course we got Colossus of Akrois. It starts as a defender, but it is indestructible. When I pay its monstrous cost of 10, it no longer is a defender, and it's a 20/20 beater straight to the face. Deep Sea Kraken with a suspend of 3, but it's a 6/6 that costs 8 mana. But whenever a player or an opponent plays a spell, if Deep Sea Kraken is suspended, remove a time counter from it. So if you've got those 0-cost combo-y decks, then it says, hello! And then these are all the lands that are not basics. So we got the Reliquary Tower for our draw power. Temple of the False Gods, because who doesn't like a land that produces 2 mana with 5 lands on the battlefield? Command Tower, because it's a command tower. Halimar Depths, because it lets you essentially brainstorm. So it lets you look at the top 3 of your library and then put them back in any order. And then Lonely Sandbar, because I felt a cycle land would be necessary. Alright, folks. So that is my son Quan's clan. Some honorable mentions for the deck that I would like to have in there, again, is some Gauntlet of Power, some Sword of Feast and Famine, some Tameo, but all those cards are kind of expensive and out of my budget right now, so this is more of a semi-budget version of some Quan. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, comment. As this is the first video, I thank everybody for watching, and look at my sexy penguin smacking the shit out of a polar bear, Star City Matt. So if you have anything you would like to do, and don't forget to visit patreon.com/BladeSharkX, so we can get this thing going. There is a goal on there. If I get 10 Patreons after the first month or 2, somebody out of that will be getting a few packs or certain cards or a box of magic. So again, like, subscribe, get a patreon.com/BladeSharkX, and be one of my Patreons. Let's do this. Let's make this a great channel, and you guys have an awesome time. I'm out. Bye.